they gave up 8 sacks. I think 5 or 6 of them happened in the fourth quarter. I remember Spagnuolo just dialing up blitzes, and they were running. I remember correctly. George Karlaftis had a double team against him. It was a running back and a tight end, and it just came off as what are we doing here? There's a reason why Bobby Slowick got fired, and if talk about a hard fall. That guy was getting head coaching interviews this time last year. Now he is unemployed, and his luster is just worn off. So it's a lost season for Houston. They have a lot to work on. Their offensive line's a wreck, and they're going to need to overhaul that. You hope C.J. Stroud's able to get out of the sophomore slump and some healthy wide receivers, because Tank Dell's probably not coming back next year. Who knows how effective Stephon Diggs is going to be, and no one else has really stepped up in the interim.
The thing about Stephon Diggs is his contract year is coming up. So that's a major part of this offseason for Houston, is really deciding what they want to do with that wide receiver room. There's been a lot of questions coming around that, with the injuries to Tank Dell piling up, which is completely out of anyone's control. But then you got a guy like Nico Collins. He's a great backup, to fill in that number 1 role when someone comes out. But my question is, can you find a better, more reliable option, maybe a cheaper option than Stephon Diggs? We have other free agents who are more proven, I'd say, in recent years than a locker room potential quote-unquote cancer. That's Stephon Diggs. You got guys like T. Higgins who are coming from Cincinnati looking for a new place to go potentially if they can't get a deal done. What are your thoughts on that, Coleman Tree?
My main thing there is with something like T. Higgins. My question is, you're going to have to save money up for C.J. Stroud. So it would have to be a short-term deal, or you'd have to get somebody like a Joe Mixon or a Laramie Tunsil in the future. You also have to pay Will Anderson. You also have, Nico Collins you have to pay as well. So that's the question moving forward. I don't know if they're going to get a surefire number 1. They might end up getting a number 2 or a number 3. My question is, I have to look at who's available on the free agent market. But for the most part, it's probably would have to be that sort of situation. The thing with Diggs, he had some moments, but he's nowhere near what he was. I think he'll more or less be a veteran role, like a slot guy, but I don't think it's going to be in Houston. I think he might end up, spitballing. He might play with his brother in Dallas. But that's just, just a long-term, just sort of, just shot in the dark. It more or less depends, because remember, Stephon, his luster wore off the previous year because of that big drop in the divisional game against Kansas City. They traded him, and now it's just... Yeah, I'll have to look this up real quick.
Yeah, you're good. Take all the time you need.
Yeah, let me look up Sport Track. He has a 1-year, $22 million deal. His dead cap hit is $16 million. So, but it's all restructured. It's a void deal. So he is a UFA. So more or less, it's a they might just either let him walk or restructure for another year just to lower those dead cap hits, because he has a dead cap hit of $16.644 million 2025, and then 4.161 for 3 years after. It's restructure issues.
Yeah, and that's what my mindset is on. You could restructure, you could do all these things, maybe franchise tag, if that's absolutely you think you need Diggs there, which you just talked about with the free agency market and his contract situation. Personally, I just think there's better options for someone who's probably going to be younger than Stephon Diggs. That's no discredit to Diggs. Diggs is a great player. He's had some great years, great moments. Minneapolis Miracle is one that comes to mind right off the top of my head, but I just feel like they're cheaper guys.
Yeah, well, I think the thing with Houston is you got to remember they're still a very young team. They were formed in what?
2002.
2002. Yeah. So, obviously, yeah, it sucks. The results of the game sucked. It's never fun. They're the only team that's never been to the championship round, I think, of all the teams. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of drawing a blank, but I'd say Houston's got some good players on offense, and if I were them, I'd just look into getting some really good defensive guys this upcoming draft.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. What about you, Trey?
I know the main thing there, I would say they need offensive line more or less. A lot of their guys haven't really panned out there. They've had a lot of injuries in that regard. I'm looking at the wide receiver free agent list. It's not really anything super inspiring. A lot of veterans, but I mean, do you take a gamble on someone like a Chris Godwin and hope he comes back from injury? I don't know, but a lot of the 4-year guys, you're looking at guys like, well, T. Higgins is your big free agent. I mean, do you trust like a KJ Osborne or Deontay Johnson? That ain't happening. I mean, do you go Hollywood Brown? I mean, but Hollywood Brown might want to stick in Kansas City for another year if they get another ring. The 4-year guys not looking too inspiring. Elijah Moore, Tutu Atwell, Ben Skoranek, Tyler Johnson, De'Ami Brown. So, I mean, they're in a tough situation. It's a lot of haves versus have-nots, and they'll probably go with a veteran or two just to more or less fix those ailments. But it's, yeah, I think they're going to go heavy offensive line here.
I gotta agree with that. I think that's probably what you're gonna do. It's like it reminds me of the Seahawks a bit. We're Seahawks fans down here. We've followed them quite a bit, and we've seen the same issues over and over and over again. You don't address the offensive line, you cannot build a Super Bowl caliber team, at least in my opinion. We've discussed that in our previous episodes.
Our GM has gone out of his way to say that he thinks guards are paid too much, so...
Which I don't understand where you get that narrative from. I mean, I get it. The league is expensive. It's expensive to sign players. It's expensive to bring in some really good talent sometimes. But at what point do you sit down and you think, hey, our draft picks, they're not hitting for offensive linemen? At what point do you go out and you get somebody who's proven to be a rock star on the offensive line? I mean, your Pittsburgh Steelers know all about a shitty offensive line.
Agreed. But the main thing there is, once again, I know, like, with offensive line, they do have Laramie Tunsil locked up. But Laramie Tunsil's a Pro Bowler name only. He had a terrible year. A lot of pre-snap penalties, a lot of holding calls. I mean, Kenyon Green has not panned out. I feel like you also have Shaq Mason. He hasn't really been there, more or less. But at the same time, it's just they've got some issues to fix up, and that's easier said than done.
Yeah, agreed. Well, we've pretty much covered Houston. Let's move on to the next divisional round because we're a little stretched for time. Wow.
This one,
Here there is.
I did really feel like the Commanders could pull the upset off, but I did not expect it to be that bad.
And funny enough, when you talk about the Commanders and the Lions, we had a show on that week, which we talked about this. We said, if there is one team that could take down the Detroit Lions, it's going to be a team that's dominant on offense. It takes a lot of really good defenders to stop them from scoring, and when you got a person like Jaden Daniels who's just able to score consistently on every drive against a depleted defense like that, what did you expect to be the outcome? Like, it's no excuse to have, a depleted defense and be like, well, it was because of our defense we lost. Like, it's true, but like, there's coaching that's a matter in there too.
And you got to feel bad for the Lions because they just lost their OC, their DC.
They lost their president. Not president. Sorry, defensive line coach too.
Yeah, so Dan Campbell is like the only member of that coaching staff that's even like left.
That's
still there.
I saw a quote that said his coaching was really about to get tested, and I really think it is. And the Commanders have a bright future. We talk about that with Jaden Daniels going from the second worst team in football to the top fourth best team in football. It's remarkable to see what that coaching staff has done.
I think the thing I think the thing with something like the Lions, I would say their issue was that their defense was destroyed. They had lost Harry and Arnold during that game too, I believe. They were down, I think, like 16 players on defense on IR at one point. So I feel like that was going to be the issue that would have killed them. I mean, losing Aiden Hutchinson, that was hurting. David Montgomery was nowhere near healthy. I think he'll end up getting surgery after, relatively recently because he was not the same after. And what people haven't realized, you needed the offense to keep up. Jared Goff played probably the worst game as a Lion in a good bit, like since the Houston game, I would actually argue, because the main thing there, it's that they had more or less just were hoping just to outgun Washington, and they couldn't. So that's what ended up killing them. Ben Johnson got too cute in a lot of things. For example, the Jameson Williams pass. But I think the thing there, I know a lot of Lions fans are upset because they think Ben Johnson was more focused on his interviews than prepping for the game. So I mean, it's a tough season, but Detroit, I want to say, hey, welcome back. Hey, welcome to the NFL, my man. You know, this is you're one of us. One of us. One of us. Google Cup. That's how it is. Come on. That's how we are.
I have a quick question I want to ask you about Detroit, and it revolves around Jared Goff. You know, you're sitting at what, the 28th position, 29th position? No, 28th position, I think, 27th, one of the two. If a guy who's got a big upside, which I doubt this would happen, but this is just an example off the top of my head, like Quinn Ewers is sitting there late first round, do you grab him?
I mean, with Detroit, they already have Hendon Hooker. Like, how's he been doing? I know, like, they haven't really been mentioning. They brought back Teddy Bridge, so, I mean, I don't know if they really trust Hendon Hooker. I feel like they're going to go with more of a veteran backup option. I mean, you do have plenty of veterans that you can bring as a free agent there, but, I mean, Quinn Ewers, I feel like he'd be more of a Miami fit, I feel like, because he fits that kind of offensive style.
I was just wondering about that because I have a friend who's a Lion fan, been a diehard since he was a kid, who blocked me after talking crap all week about the Commanders. He was like, we're going to drop 50 on them. We're going to smoke them, and we're going to smoke the Eagles. He was talking so much, and my God, it's been a long week for him as well as other Commander fans, and he brought up the idea of going after a quarterback in the draft, and I'm just like, I saw a sentiment online who I really agreed with.
Yeah, I'm not
which was said, Jared Goff, if the players around him are playing perfect, he can lead you to a Super Bowl. He needs somebody who can make up for those mistakes, just like any quarterback, but even more so. And we saw that with the Rams back in 2020. You know, they go into Green Bay and just fall apart. And then you see a guy like Matthew Stafford come in and, my God, you know.
I think the thing with a Jared Goff situation, you are correct. I mean, he's a good quarterback. I mean, you have the pieces around him. He can make you to a Super Bowl, but can he lead you to that next echelon? I don't know. I mean, especially if he had a dud like he did against Washington. Because that pick he threw before half, it was unnecessary. It was a 3rd and short, and it was a backbreaker. Plus, it was also that fumble after a pass on a 3rd and 1 near the goal line. That changed the game.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff himself, of the 5 turnovers, 3 of those were thrown by him. They were 3. I think they had 5 total, right? Yeah. And then 3 were thrown by Jared Goff, 1 was thrown by Jameson Williams, and then 1 was just a fumble. But overall, Jared Goff just did not have a great game.
I think, as I said, it was a kind of game where it's like, now you have to think like, okay, is this guy going to be the answer? It was kind of like Sam Darnold the last 2 weeks of the year. Like he ran himself out of town because he's going to demand a big deal. And Minnesota's not going to pay it. They're going to move forward with JJ McCarthy because of those 2 games.
I see, if I'm Minnesota, and I know Minnesota didn't make it to the divisional round, but I didn't really get to touch on this in that 1 week that we had because I didn't quite remember it. Mm-hmm. When it comes to this case of Sam Darnold and Minnesota Vikings, if I'm the Vikings, I want 1 more year for a prove-it deal. And if I'm Darnold, I don't want that, and I completely get it. But if I'm the Vikings, I want to see you prove that you can be that guy again. Because this could be a one-off thing, like a lot of people were thinking with Geno, and when he came to Seattle that first year, and he played pretty damn good. Like, are you really back, or is it just because, you know, O'Connell's just that good of a head coach? And I completely get what you're saying about McCarthy, and I agree. But, like, if it comes to the case of Darnold, I think we could see him on a 1-year deal that's a little higher up in money. Not too high up, maybe like 15 mil, if they really come to like a, hey, we'll give you this much if you play very well. But if a team like the Giants come in and they're like, hey, we'll give you a 4-year deal worth $120 million, I could see Darnold taking that too.
Yeah. I think the thing with Darnold, he's going to want, like, say, I mean, if he, like, stopped playing after week 16, he probably would have gotten $40 million a year for 4 years, $100 million guaranteed. Now he's probably going to get $25 to $30 million a year, 3 years, $40 to $50 million guaranteed. So tens of millions of dollars just vanished in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, 100%. Like, man, that was the day he robbed himself of a future, and it's just crazy to me. I wonder. A lot of people are saying McCarthy looked like Anakin on that sideline. I wonder.
He did.
How
he has great hair.
I wonder how McCarthy's gonna do in the second year, sitting behind someone who played lights out for like a good 15 weeks, 16 weeks.
I think Sam Darnold's a good quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback that he could have developed behind, but I don't see, as I think you were saying earlier, I don't see a future for Sam Darnold in Minnesota.
It's unfortunate, man, the way he played himself out of millions. Because, like, there were teams calling, too, about, like, a trade offer for McCarthy, too. Yeah. And at first, I think there was a report that Minnesota was entertaining it at first. But then once those 2 weeks happened, they shut that shit down fast.
And again, Sam Darnold, great quarterback to sit and develop behind. I'm sure he's a fabulous mentor, but he is not the future of that team.
I think the thing too is, once again, it's JJ McCarthy's to lose, and he has definitely a question mark. Like, he only had one good throw in the preseason, but I mean, you're coming off a torn meniscus. You can't prove anything there, so who knows?
That's true. Let's go back to the divisional round where the Bills defeated the Ravens due to a Mark Andrews drop that led to some interesting Twitter trending words and a lot of other memes. Let's talk about that.
I just want to say, before anything, I feel really bad for Mark Andrews. I don't think he deserves the hate that he's getting.
I don't think the stuff, I can't say on air what was trending, but it was extremely uncalled for. I don't think, like, I don't care if, for example, Geno Smith threw the game-losing interception like he normally does. Listen, that kind of, like, directed wordage to somebody is not needed, especially when they're dealing with the loss in the playoffs, coming, like, inches away from taking it back to overtime and potentially coming out with the game. I think there was a lot to prove, especially with Likely, who's developed into a really nice second option. And a lot of people are wondering if this might be Andrew's twilight. And I wonder, I think he's got a lot of drop issues to work on, but I don't know if he's going to be out of here for the next 2 years.
Yeah. I still think, before we switch it over to Tree, I still think that if Mark Andrews had caught it, it wouldn't have mattered, because I believe Josh Allen would have just gone down there, and then the Bills would have scored a field goal. They had like less than 2 minutes. They had over a minute left, which is plenty of time to do that.
Especially with how Allen was playing the game.
All right, now you can.
I know the thing. I'm looking up Mark Andrews on the spot track as well. He has a $6 million dead cap hit if they caught him this year. So he is a free agent after next year. So I think they might end up cutting him. I think he's going to be a cap casualty. And I know he's got a bit to offer, but I think that's unfortunately going to be his legacy. He's made incredible catches, but that's going to be trying to be too cute and move across when he should just move forward and dove and drop the 2-point conversion. And it's one of those things where it's like, you're just sitting there like, dude, most people in that stadium could have made that catch. That's the unfortunate problem. And I know there are people that were blaming Lamar for that. It's like, dude, you're a pro receiver. You got to make that catch. You have to make that catch 100 times out of 100. But it's just how the cookie crumbles. The Ravens beat themselves again, and it's just been a repeated story for that team. And it's unfortunate, but it's just like that was their test, and I feel like that might have been their best shot.
I wholeheartedly agree that was probably their best shot. It's really sad.
Yeah, he's a free agent after next year, not this year.
I didn't know that either.
I just looked it up. I mean, I was just curious because his dead cap hit is $6 million if they cut him this year, and he's a cap hit of $16 million, so they'd be saving $10 million in cap. So it is very feasible they do cut him. And you have Likely too, so there's no point. And you already have one in the future. You might as well get younger and cheaper.
That's exactly what I was saying. Like, if you got Likely, who's developed into a stud behind Andrews, what's the point in taking that $6 million dead cap when you could go out and get somebody else who's going to be on a cheap deal for a backup tight end? Let's talk about the other one, which should have ended in a Rams victory, but Stafford decided, let's chuck that thing out of bounds with seconds left. The one time I give you reps, and you just throw it away.
I will be honest, as a Seahawks fan, I'm very glad that the Rams ended up losing. But then again, I can't deal with Philly fans, so we won and we lost.
See, as a Seahawks fan, that was a hard game to root for anybody. I kind of was rooting for the Meteor, but regardless, I wanted the Rams to win, and I say that because I really thought the Commanders could take them down if they got that far. I mean, you could tell.
The Commanders dropped like 42 on them earlier this year.
You could tell the Rams were just gassed, and that was just my perspective while watching it. The Rams just looked defeated around the end of the game. What do you think, Tree?
I think the thing with the Rams is they had chances, but it was those 2 fumbles in the fourth quarter that did them in. Philly was doing everything they could to hand them the game, and the Rams were a very feisty team. I think the thing there, it's just the miracle run ended. They just didn't have enough. And now the question lies, what happens with Matthew Stafford? Because he's thinking about retirement. Speaking of Sam Darnold, maybe Kevin O'Connell puts in a good word, and he's their future quarterback.
I think Darnold and the Rams. Ooh, I didn't think about that.
That could be good.
That scares me as a Hawks fan. Dude, the Rams could be seriously. If Darnold can even capture a bit of what he was this season and just be decent enough to get his team winning games, which with McVay, who's led Jared Goff to the Super Bowl, and that defense, man, the Rams could be scary if they pick up Darnold, which let's not have that happen.
Darnold's already got some, if he were to go to the Rams, some great wide receivers to throw to.
Oh, God.
Like Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, scary dudes. I as a Seahawks fan, my respect goes out to them because
I don't want them to pick up Darnold now.
Yeah, me neither.
I think the thing, it's with Darnold, I don't know if he's going to go back to what he was, but he does have a quality receiver bunch he's going to with Kupp and Nakua. Plus Higbee, he'll be back healthy next year. And yeah, it's a very young team. Like, they've done a really good job in drafting and development, which has been a surprising revelation considering they spent a good chunk of the last few years saying fuck them picks. And I know you're not supposed to swear on there, but it's, I know you're FCC, so you can blame me for that one. Don't get in trouble.
We're allowed to have any hate speech. We can swear. It's okay.
We're allowed to swear because it shows our emotions, so we're good.
Okay, so hold on. So if I bash Philly, is that hate speech?
No.
No.
Go for it.
You can bash them all you want.
Yeah, good. But it's the thing with Philly. It's just like they've been dancing through the raindrops. You have AJ Brown reading inner excellence on the sidelines too during the wild card, and well, they unleashed their inner excellence unfortunately because Saquon is a beast.
Keeping with the Eagles, that was. I don't understand, bro. I kept seeing so much. The Eagles are gonna blow it. The Eagles are cooked. What's happening in Philly? And then they dropped 55, the most ever in a conference title game on the Washington Commanders. What changed?
Okay, I want to get some words in first. Washington's defense is straight up not that good. It hasn't been all year. It was the same boat as the Lions. Two very explosive, powerful offenses, but their defense, I get the Lions were injured, so I'm going to give them grace for that. But Washington's defense was just not good.
I don't even think it was the defense that cost them the game, in my opinion. I think what cost them the game was the same thing as the Rams in the fourth quarter. 3 fumbles in just kick returns.
Yeah, they did have 4 turnovers, so that killed them too.
Oh my God, self-inflicted wounds, and man.
I believe the Eagles scored off of every single turnover.
Yes, I believe they did too.
I think the thing too with the Commanders, they've had a terrible run defense all year. I thought Tampa Bay was going to end up winning their game because Bucky Irving was going to run wild on them. They've had issues stopping the run all year. I think that's going to be their main concern moving forward, really beefing up that defense, bringing in permanent members instead of like placeholders. The only thing is, the funniest part is Frankie Louvu trying to get the Eagles to rage quit on the tush push by diving over like he's Polamalu. I'm like, oh yeah, I know this move. He's trying to do like Madden Online when he's down like 28-0. It's like rage quit, please rage quit, and then he just sees flags. It's like, okay.
There's a bright future in Washington, and a lot of people, especially Eagle fans, want to say this was a fluke. There's something building.
I can't see it. I do think Jaden Daniels is going to regress a little bit. That tends to happen with new quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
But they're going to build a better team around him. I could see them overtaking Philly for the division next year.
100%.
Do I think they're going to make another Super Bowl run? Probably not, but I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up doing it.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
I think Washington's going to be strong just because of Jaden Daniels. I mean, I liked him coming out of college. Like, he had a 75% completion rate. But I think he'll be up there for a while. I think if Caleb Williams manages to get some structure, I think he'll do well. But, Drake May, I liked what I saw out of him. I need to see more out of Penix. We don't know about McCarthy. I think Bo Nix is more of a benefactor of yards after catch, and Denver fans are going to kill me for that one, but look up the analytics. I'm sorry, but, I think he's a Sean Payton merchant, and they're also scheduled.
Yeah, sorry, Perna.
Fans are going to go after him. That's it. That's a lot.
All right, so we got one more game that we wanted to talk about, and that's, God.
This is just, I personally hate to say that a game seemed one-sided. Right? I hate saying that because you want to believe in the integrity of the game, and I don't want to blame that entire game on the referees because it's not. Buffalo going for 2 at that start of the game or second quarter, I forgot where it was. But
I think that was dumb.
I think that was a mistake. I just think when it comes to the Chiefs, I think you said this, Tree, in one of your videos, you have to be perfect against them if you want to win. You just have to be. There's no other way around it. Just the boogeyman can't be stopped unless you don't make self-inflicted wounds, and the Bills just made too many, aside from those 2 questionable calls around the end of the game with the possession instead of like a drop, and
those did help, but they weren't the sole reason that the Bills ended up losing.
And that's what a lot of people are trying to say. I don't think the Bills lost solely because of penalties. I think the Bills lost because of early on mistakes.
I think the thing is, the moment the Bills lost this game, when Christian Benford went down with a concussion. The moment he went down, the Bills, I had mentioned a lot of issues with them. They had been masked by Josh Allen. They started out slow in first halves, and their defense is very suspect. When they brought out Kaiir Elam, they got burned to a crisp. Kaiir Elam is terrible, and they were picking on him all game long. That defense could not stop a thimble most of the time. And the thing is, too, the Bills decided to get aggressive. I know they're talking about going for 2, but here's the thing. You're not going to kick the extra point when you have a chance to tie the game. It's against the logic. So I get what they're doing there. It's just most of the time they just tried to do the tush push. It was weird. Because I know, like, on that 4th down, that was, if you can argue, like, an issue there, that was game manipulation. Because if you place the spot a little further up, you can't challenge. The camera angles were inconclusive. You can't see the ball. So the problem is they were never going to overturn that. But the problem, once again, is people are blaming the refs when in reality, the Bills were just the lesser team. That's the unfortunate problem here. And it's been a recurring trend. They've lost 4 straight to Kansas City. And the Chiefs have had a lot of bullshit. Let's not lie to ourselves here. I think the NFL is very happy to get Taylor Swift back in the Super Bowl. But I don't think they're going to deliberately fix a game just because, like, I know a lot of people on Twitter are going out about, like, oh, this is going to be the lowest rated of Super Bowl in history. It's like, no. Yeah, the casuals are going to be out in full force, and everyone is going to be watching out of hate and fury. And then what's going to happen is the Chiefs are going to three-peat, and everyone's going to swear off football forever, and they'll be back in March. We know how this goes. And trust me, I'm getting jaded by the league too, but for entirely different reasons. Not because of the Chiefs. Now you know how Steelers fans felt against New England. Welcome to my life.
That's exactly my point. Like, we said the same damn thing last year. This is gonna be the most least viewed thing ever. Nobody wanted this, yet it was the most viewed Super Bowl ever. I think it was like 45 million people tuned in to watch the Super Bowl with the Niners and the Chiefs.
Some of that was definitely because of Taylor Swift. I won't lie.
Oh yeah, probably, but still.
They haven't showed her as much at games this year, so and the Chiefs are still one of the highest viewed teams. So obviously she's not the reason for all the viewership this year. I think it's all that, as Tree brought up earlier, it's the hate watching. People watch because
agree.
they want to see them lose.
Like, I watched that game against the Texans, not because I wanted to watch the Texans face the Chiefs, because I wanted to see if they could actually take down Mahomes, because I hate how good they are. And it's exactly what Tree said. The Bills are the Steelers to the Chiefs as the Patriots. Yeah, I failed speaking that, but let's just go past that.
I think the thing too, it's just they just can't beat him. I know like a lot of people are calling for Sean McDermott's head, but they're not going to fire him. Josh Allen masked a lot of issues on that team, and I mean Buffalo did overperform. I had them winning the division, but they had a lot of cuts in the offseason because they were $40 million over the cap. I know they're going to have some issues this year. This might be the end of Von Miller there if they have the issue. I mean, I think that he has an out. They might end up cutting him. James Cook is solid, but they got to fix that wide receiver room. They've got some questions there. Khalil Shakir looks pretty good, but Keon Coleman was pretty disappointing. Dalton Kincaid, And I think the thing, too, it's that you got to figure out a way. I mean, the fear with me is that Buffalo's going to try to find a way this whole offseason to just beat the Chiefs, and then someone else is going to knock them out.
Exactly like 2022 with the Bengals when they knocked them out. And it's just there was so much hype around Buffalo being the ones to take them out. And I believe they're regular season Chief merchants, if that makes sense.
Also, I think the most hilarious part about this whole situation is, Charles, you remember how the Chiefs ended up with Patrick Mahomes, right?
Yeah, they traded the picks.
With Buffalo.
They're the sole reason for their own demise.
And they're the reason the Chiefs got Xavier Worthy this year, too.
Yep.
Xavier Worthy? And not just that, as I said, Xavier Worthy, I think they had another trade, too. But, I mean, the Bills did get Tre'Davious White out of that deal, which is good. But Tre'Davious White, he suffered severe injury. He's not the same player. They had to cut him. And then Mahomes is inevitable. And I know a bunch of people are going to say, like, oh, we could have had Patrick Mahomes. It's like, no, he would have been ruined everywhere else. If he's drafted to Chicago, he's the boss, and then Mitch Trubisky probably ends up being somewhat decent. I know how this goes.
Yeah, and a lot of people just think that if you draft that quarterback who became, like, the GOAT, then your team's automatically going to win everything. Like, Mahomes needed that year to sit. You know, I watched a bit of him back at Texas Tech. He needed that year to sit down, learn a little bit from Alex Smith, who had been around the league at that point from the Niners over to Kansas City. It's just, it was needed. And I think a lot of teams, what they do is they rush that kid out there. He don't know anything about pro football except for, like, college. They usually become ruined because of that. I mean, let's take someone like Bryce Young, for example. Dude was horrendous last year. He was horrendous in the first half of this year until he pulled it together. I wonder if you have a veteran quarterback, Young sits behind that, how does this second year turn out for Carolina, you know, with him sitting that whole year?
I don't know. I know with Bryce Young, it's he needed that factory reset, and he'll probably end up getting more weapons in free agency. It wouldn't shock me if Mark Andrews gets cut, that's where he goes. But it more or less just, you have to more or less just, it varies because the NFL, you have that rookie deal and you need to push, which is why you rush guys like Anthony Richardson who are nowhere near ready and shouldn't have been drafted anywhere near that high. But it's just the way the cookie crumbles in the NFL. Like, you have a lot of quarterback prospects that have been honestly ruined or stagnated. Look at the 2021 draft class. 2022, you can argue a little bit too. I mean, the guys like a CJ Stroud or a Jaden Daniels are very rare. But the problem is they're going to keep picking the lottery and hoping they can do something. It used to be like you used to sit for a couple years and then you'd start. But nowadays, you don't have that time, you don't have that luxury.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and it is like a lottery system. I'm just, I guess, someone who believes in how things worked when, I guess I was born, where you sit a guy and you let the rookie learn from it. I mean, the system works for a reason. There's a reason teams did it. Like I said, Mahomes, Josh Allen sat, I believe, too, his rookie year. Lamar Jackson sat until he came in about halfway through the season. These guys who are top tier in the league, they've sat behind somebody who was proven at a certain point and just, their careers twilighted, which is normal, and they learned something. I think a lot of people got the wrong idea that it's common to find somebody in the top 10 who's just going to be 100% ready to go. Like you said, Jaden Daniels rare, CJ Stroud rare, those people who do that. And then they always get blown away when the sophomore year isn't as good as the first year. Like, I wonder why. They have to, find their rhythm and progressions that they may not have found in the first year. They have to deal with injuries that they haven't dealt with. Jaden Daniels had a little stretch where he was a little bit injured, but he's never had to deal with, being really shook up outside of Philadelphia, in my opinion at least. You could make an argument with other games. I think that there's a reason these super ready-to-go teams with the quarterbacks usually fail in their second year to make it far, the Texans.
This happens with all sports too, not just football, but you pick up a star-studded player, they have a great freshman year, and then they just regress into their sophomore year because they, I guess, quote, got hot just too fast.
Yeah.
Couldn't find their groove.
That's what I was trying to say. What do you think on that, Trey?
And not just that, you also have to consider the NFL teams have more tape. And what people noticed about CJ Stroud is he doesn't do well under pressure or against the blitz. So they just sent the house against CJ Stroud, especially with that bad offensive line, and that's why he regressed. And not just that, it's just like you get more tape and they're going to have to adjust to that. If they can't, then, they're going to have to look somewhere else in the future. But I know Stroud's got at least a couple more years as a starter. He still has that talent in him. But the main thing is, once again, it's a league of adaptation. Because if you don't adapt, you die. I see that with my Steelers. They refuse to adapt, they die. The Cowboys, for example, they refuse to adapt, they die. And if you don't adapt, guess what happens? You're sweating the toilet. Because if there's anything in the NFL, there are a lot of really poorly managed teams. And a lot of people that think they're smarter than they are.
And a couple people came to my mind immediately when that was said, like Pete Carroll in the twilight of Seattle. He refused to change his defensive scheme. There's a reason why we had the lowest defense. Then you got a guy like McDonald coming in. That defense is now top 5 defensive line in the league. Or you look at a guy like, I don't know if this is really fits, but you could say Mike Tomlin in certain scenarios, certain ones. Like, the Steelers more, Tree.
Yeah, I think is there are a lot of people calling for his head around here, and it's been the same thing. He's been very stubborn, especially with his offenses, because as I said, there was a tweet on there. It's like last night. It's like Steelers fans looking at other people's offenses is like looking at a flying car, and it's very true because it's like, whoa, you can move the football? That's crazy. Even Russell Wilson coming off flying moonballs, and you're just sitting there like, whoa, we can move the ball forwards. We don't have to do jet sweeps and short passes. Whoa, we can do this. Oh my God. It's just like your mind's just blown because it's no longer just this traditional offense from the 70s and 80s. Now, in the defense, it's pretty much just rush 4 and pray TJ Watt does superhero shit. That's all it really comes down to. Especially against that game against Baltimore, it's like the team gave up, and I'm like, dude, what are we doing here? RD2 just came out and said he still has faith in everybody. It's like they're not going to change. It's just the way things are, and there's a lot of apathy in this fan base right now because it's just, okay, you go 9-8 and get your ass beat in the wild card round. Nobody wants that shit. You're mediocre. You're a C+ team.
Oh, but how about we change it up a bit and go 10-7 and get our ass beat in the wild card round?
Very true. C+ team. I go 9-8 Super Bowl. We wave the towel. Let's go.
Steelers going to the Super Bowl.
You fluke out a bunch of wins and get beat, or you start out strong and then you collapse and then you get your ass beat.
That's very true. I would like to say I noticed this around the beginning, so just in case the audio did in fact glitch at the start, this is a week after the wild card and a week after the divisional. We have special guest Urinating Tree here from YouTube. Like I mentioned at the start, that wasn't probably recorded. He is the ultimate Yinzer.
Brother, as I said, I'm not the ultimate Yinzer. Pittsburgh dad clears. I've been telling you this.
Right. Pittsburgh dad clears. He is the Pittsburgh dad.
Pittsburgh dad is the ultimate Yinzer. Don't deny this. Like, Pittsburgh dad is royalty in this city. He comes out in his garb. People don him with iced tea light and Permane sandwiches. It's a sight to behold. Yes. And I base this on absolutely nothing.
Man, we need someone like Pittsburgh dad here in Seattle. I want someone handing out roasted cardinal. I want someone down here, bro.
Yeah. Pikes Peak fishes. You're just chucking them at people.
We're gonna start throwing fish at people.
Pretty much. Just randomly, like, oh. And it's like, whoops, he fell in the pier. He's good.
Well, that's what the Kraken do. After a win, they'll have the stars of the game just throw fish at people, and I think it's the most hilarious thing that I've ever. Their media day photos had fish in the background. It was hilarious.
Very true, and it's definitely once again a sight to behold.
Now that we got the introductions out of the way again, just to make sure we got that, this is something I wanted to do after last night's game, especially considering how everybody's been comparing them over and over and over again. I wanted to compare the 2000s to 2010s Patriots dynasty
to the current Chiefs.
Current Chiefs dynasty.
And I have some stats about those that we'll go over, but I just want to say first off, before I read all these stats and give my thoughts, these that I'm listing are only from the period that they were a dynasty. So if the numbers don't sound right, it's because I'm only listing them from a certain time frame. So 2000s to 2010s Patriots, they had 16 division titles. They won the division every single year except for 2008. They've had 12 conference championship appearances. The only years they did not appear were 2006 and then 2009 through 2011. 9 Super Bowl appearances being 36, 38, 39, 42, 46, 49, 51, 52, and 53. 6 Super Bowl wins being 36, 38, 39, 49, 51, and 53.
I hate 49.
Yeah, as Seahawks fans, we don't talk about 49, but I respect it. Anyways, and then current Chiefs, so late 2010s to mid 2020s, 9 division titles all in a row, 2016 to 2024. 7 conference championship appearances, 2019 through 2025. 5 Super Bowl appearances, and then 3 Super Bowl wins pending the results of Super Bowl 59.
And I wonder, we've seen the 27 years old graphic for both of these quarterbacks, Brady and Mahomes, and a lot of people are arguing Mahomes is the GOAT. I would say if Mahomes wins the Super Bowl on February 9th, I would say he is currently, if you compared him just for this part of their careers, I would say the Chiefs dynasty is more impressive. I would say the Chiefs dynasty Mahomes is a better quarterback, I'd say also. Because remember, Brady couldn't run that much also.
I would also, before we switch it over to Tree, say that I would 1,000 times, I would take the Patriots dynasty right now, or from the 2000s, 2010s, I would take that over the current Chiefs because the Patriots were actually a fun team to watch. With the Chiefs, it's just the same bullshit over and over again.
Well, it was fun unless you were a Steeler fan.
I mean, everyone, I'm sick of this historical revisionism about the Patriots. They were a dull team, especially later on in their final years with Brady. There were a lot of short passes. It was a lot of dinking and dunking through the zone, pounding the run, and strong defense, which is a lot like the Chiefs are today. I mean, a lot of people are going to say, the Chiefs are they're cheating or stuff like that. A lot of their drives are sustained. They are consistent, and they eat a lot of clock. They are very Patriots-like in their efficiency. And that is where the Chiefs have their strength. I feel like they're relative equals in terms of a lot of positions. Spagnuolo is a genius when it comes to defensive schematics and just being able to dial up the right pressures in the fourth quarter. And I think that turns a lot of quarterbacks to their head, especially, Houston with CJ Stroud and Josh Allen on that final play against Buffalo. He didn't expect 2 blitzers to just scream down the middle. of the field. They didn't get the proper protections, and he has to throw up a prayer. But the thing too, it's just how things work.
That's exactly right. Like, I remember there was like 10 minutes left in the game. Buffalo had the ball, and I remember saying, if you guys don't score a touchdown here to tie it up, this game's over. Because Mahomes is consistently taking up 6-7 minutes per drive or something like that. I don't have the exact number, but I could just tell it was over if you don't score here and tie it up. Because there's no way you're scoring twice within 2 minutes or 3 minutes against this Chiefs team.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the thing too, once again, it's, as we said earlier, you have to be perfect against Kansas City, you have to be perfect against New England. And same thing, they're just efficient teams, and efficiency wins games. It's not pretty, but that's how you win championships. And that's why the Chiefs have made it to 3 straight Super Bowls. And honestly, 5 of the last 6.
I was under the impression if the Chiefs three-peat here, what happens with Kelsey after that? Because there's been a lot of talk that he might retire. I'm not sure where the reports came from, to be frank, but at that point, how old is he, real quick,
I think
Coleman?
he's 37. I want to look that up.
He's an older guy. Like, what else do you have to prove if you're Kelsey, Tree?
I mean, not much. He's born October 5th, 89, so he's 35, but 36 next year. I think the thing is, like, remember, Gronk retired pretty early as well, because Gronk is actually roughly the same age as Travis Kelsey. I know his body wore down quicker because of his style of play, but I mean, he's reaching that age, and I mean, Kelsey, he's automatic first ballot Hall of Famer, especially with the way he's played, with how clutch he's been in the postseason. He has 1,000 receptions, 77 touchdowns. I mean, at this point, what else do you have to prove? I think it'll be a tough loss for Kansas City, but Kelsey's lost maybe a step or two. He's still really solid, but he's not like peak Travis Kelsey. He just relies more on his instincts now than his pure athleticism. But I think the thing too, it's that, I mean, in the NFL, you got to worry about your body. And I mean, could Kelsey play another year or two? Yeah. But you've won 4 Super Bowls. You're a first ballot Hall of Famer. You have nothing left to prove. It's like Aaron Donald last year. He could have still played, but you have nothing left to prove. Save your body.
That's exactly what I was thinking too, because, like, quite literally, look at Rob Gronkowski. He'd won 3 Super Bowls right after 49. He said himself, Cam Chancellor, when he hit him, or Earl Thomas, I forgot which player he said, but when he hit him, he hasn't been the same since. Like, his body hasn't been the same since. And at what point do you prioritize that? Because, 4 Super Bowls they win next couple
4
weeks.
4 Super Bowls, 3 in a row. Like,
what do you have to prove? You're part of history. 3 straight Super Bowls, bro, and 5 of them in the last 6 years. I mean, come on.
that's like peak life. That's the time to
That's
retire.
the peak life for a football player.
Yeah.
Of course. And you're making a shitload of money. And you have a celebrity girlfriend. And you pretty much are the talk of the town. You're going to have a podcast on ESPN with Jason in the future. I mean, they're going to shove so much Kelsey in our face, they might as well be a Campbell's Chunky soup. That's what's going to end up happening.
Speaking of Kelsey, I saw this Kelsey mix when I was at Target. It's like Reese's Puffs, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and Lucky Charms. And when you brought up the Campbell's soup, it made me think of that. It's just, they're going to do so much stupid stuff when they're both retired. And I'm honestly going to be here for it because I think it's going to be hilarious.
Pretty much.
Let's bring up the big game now. I wanted to officially put out predictions and stuff like that because we've done this every single week of the regular season. We predicted matchups if we've had the time, and we have the time real quick to predict that around here at the end of the show. So who you got, Tree? Chiefs or Eagles? Who's walking away from this?
It's going to be the Chiefs. We know this. Let's be real. It's going to be some BS. They'll win by like 3, and then they're going to raise the trophy, and then all the salt will flow. Everyone's going to say, I will never, ever return to football again. I know how this goes. That's the reason why I'm not super salty, because it's like, I saw this coming.
Yeah, and last year I remember being so pissed when that ball went wide right, or the Lamar Jackson, the Ravens couldn't stop him, and the Niners. I remember being so pissed. This year, I ain't
I'm
even
not
been
even
pissed.
I'm
I'm
not
not
even-
even mad.
I'm
Like,
not even surprised.
I'm used to the same bullshit happening year after year. Like, anytime I see Buffalo against Kansas City in the playoffs, I'm like, yeah, you're losing. You're going home. Kansas City's going to the Super Bowl in some magical fucking way. It's just not gonna happen. Like, I believe the same thing. Mahomes is inevitable. Kelsey's gonna go out proposing to Swift in the middle of the field. It's gonna be the three-peat. History's made. Like, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm also gonna, like, I want to pick the Eagles so badly, but my brain and heart are just telling me that that is not gonna happen because that's not what the NFL wants. It's going to be Kansas City winning, like, a very low-scoring, like, 22-20 Super Bowl again.
No, I think it's going to be more of like, it's going to be somehow, some fucking way. It's going to be like 38-17, Chiefs win it all. Mahomes is going to have the best day of his career in the Super Bowl. It's going to be some shit. There's going to be like 4 questionable calls in the fourth quarter. Some bullshittery is going to happen.
I mean, it is. Let's be real here. I feel like Sirianni's going to unleash full Sirianni in some way. And then it's just going to be, everyone's just, it's just going to be fun times in NFL high. And everyone's just going to applaud, and the NFL will win. Happy ending, the end. Yeah. I mean, I can see it. Don't get me wrong.
It's Philly thing he can do.
One shot me, yeah. Flipping cars. They're going to flip the stadium.
Ain't that the truth? Yep.
Well, we're running out of time, unfortunately, and this has been a remarkable experience for both me and Coleman to have you on the show, Tree. And, you know, we both watched your videos. I watched it, especially growing up. Loved a lot of the content, especially that video where talked about the Seahawks getting exposed by the Falcons in the 2016 divisional.
Yeah, even as a Seahawks fan, I was like, yeah.
That's pretty much it. Without Will Thomas, that team did nothing. It's really an honor to have you on the show. So thank you very much for taking an hour of your time and come and hang out with us for a bit on our podcast.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate you.
Yeah, 100%. And for all our people who may have been tuned in or anyone listening on YouTube when this is re-uploaded, thank you so much for watching and taking a listen, or however you want to describe it. And you can find us every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll be here, plu.edu/LASR, every single Monday, 2 to 3. And we hope to see you next week. And hopefully, maybe again in the future, we have another conversation with Tree. Let us know your thoughts. This has been PLU The Nest. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next week. Again, thank you, Tree.
Thank you guys for having me on again, dude. Appreciate you. Absolutely. Peace out, brother.